This episode made possible by W&C Original Music. The music of the Carolinas and of the nation. My buddy Ron Taylor curates the music for this podcast every week, bringing you exceptional music that will bless your heart. W&C Original Music Podcast. Look them up today. Well, there's a dark and a troubled side of life. There's a bright and a sunny side too. So we meet with darkness and strife, the sunny side also we may view. We'll keep on the sunny side, always on the sunny side. Keep on that sunny side of life. It will help us every day. It will brighten on our ways if you keep on the sunny side of life. Oh, you are listening to Sean of the South, coming to you live on a Friday night broadcast. This episode is brought to you by Case Knives, a tradition of my family dating back to my granddaddy, who once said the best cure for idle hands was to build something. This episode is also all about Andy Griffith and the glories of Mayberry. It is brought to you by the Mount Airy Visitor Center in North Carolina, home of the fictional town Mayberry from the Andy Griffith Show. Visit Mayberry.com for more information. We'll keep on the sunny side, always on the sunny side. Keep on that sunny side of life. It will help us every day. It will brighten all our ways if you keep on that sunny side of life. Oh, also in the studio tonight, we got with us Alan Newsom, and we got Floyd the Barber, the real Floyd the Barber. And music here behind me tonight is Joe Regan on that beautiful fiddle, David Thier, Cheryl Gilbert, Mark Gilbert, and John Young on the mandolin. Musical guest tonight is the Family Sow, bluegrass musicians who all happen to look a lot alike because they are all related, meaning they are brother and sister. These guys play music so dang good, it's almost like they were born with these instruments in their hands the moment they tasted oxygen. Hey, let's sing this song one more time. We'll keep on the sunny side, always on the sunny side. Keep on that sunny side of life. Well, it will help us every day. It will brighten all our ways if you keep on that sunny side of life. If we keep on that sunny side of life. Whew, I love that song. I really do. I love it. Maybe more than all the other, old-timey, bluegrass-flavored songs. Well, no, that's not true. That ain't true. There's a song I like maybe a little bit more than that, and a song I would use to open up this show, except that it's been done before, and I don't want to take it. Do y'all have any idea what song I'm talking about? Yeah, I didn't think you would. I'll give you a hint. It's written by the same fella who wrote "I'll Fly Away," but it's a little. It's not better than "I'll Fly Away," but it's a different kind of Southern gospel tune. You know what it is? It's called "Turn Your Radio On." Turn your radio on. Oh, it's great. Turn your radio on. Turn your radio on. It's written by Albert E. Brumley. He was born near Spiro, Oklahoma. Pre-Dust Bowl era, we're talking. He wrote the good ones. He wrote Victory in Jesus, I believe. Or he wrote... did he write Victory in Jesus? Somebody look that up. We're not sure about that. He definitely wrote I'll Fly Away. He definitely wrote If We Never Meet Again. He wrote Rank Stranger. He wrote He Set Me Free. These are all big songs. He kind of lived in the 30s on the banks of Big Sugar Creek in Powell, Missouri. And good songwriter. I like this one though. Keep on the Sunny Side. It was written in the 1800s. I think the reason I want to use it, and I keep using it kind of as our theme song, is not only because the Carters used it as their theme song for their radio show, and you can't go wrong doing something that the Carters did. I'm not doing it to copy the Carters, although I can't think of anybody better to copy. I'm doing it because I love the sunny side of life. my word, especially now that we're in the quarantine. Quarantine. That's a hard one for me to say. And I've been called out on that lately. People would like me to start speaking a little bit more clear. Well, you get what you get, you don't pitch fit. Especially now that we're all trapped inside because of COVID-19. It's important, I think, for me personally, to keep on the sunny side, because God knows you turn on that television, you ain't going to see nothing sunny. You're going to see cloudy. You're going to see a news anchor come on the screen and he's going to say good evening to you. And then he's going to proceed to tell you 167,000 reasons why it is anything but a good evening. And then maybe, if you're lucky, they will finish with a story about a chimpanzee who went and saved a child from a burning building. And that's all you get for the good news for the day. Well, can't have it. Not me. My heart can't take it no more. Got to have a little bit of good news. Got to keep on the sunny side. Speaking of the sunny side, this episode is partially brought to you by Midnight Shift Coffee, the official coffee of the Pensacola Police Department. Pensacola's finest has made this coffee sing in a cup. Boy, you're going to love it. Look up midnightshiftcoffee.com. Get yourself a bag today. $1 from each bag goes to support the Riley Foundation, which helps fight childhood cancer. Midnight Shift Coffee. Also by Folklore Brewing and Mayberry. Quite literally the best brew in Alabama. They've won all sorts of awards. Look them up. Folklore Brewing and Mayberry from Dothan, Alabama. In the studio today, I'm really excited about this because I'm a huge Mayberry and Andy Griffith fan. And this episode that we're doing is lovingly made possible by Mount Airy Visitor Center in Mount Airy, North Carolina, which is Mayberry. Mayberry. The real Mayberry. And if you have ever wanted to know what the real Mayberry is like, you're going to find out tonight. And I'm just kind of envious of you if you don't know. Mount Airy has a thriving downtown full of retail shops and restaurants and bakeries. And you can go there and you can stroll through Mayberry and take yourself back in time, literally. I mean, when you go, you are back in time, to a time when things were simpler. Like Andy used to say, the show was filmed in the 60s, but it was filmed like it was being filmed in the 30s. Andy said that himself. The Visitor Center is located right in the heart of the pretty little downtown. I loved it. Last time we were there, we go a lot. You can find them on Instagram, hashtag Visit Mayberry, North Carolina, I think. They're on Twitter, Facebook. You find them. You go look them up. And you plan yourself a trip or something to Andy Griffith's hometown. It'll bless your heart, blow your mind, and make a believer out of you. I promise you that. Why are we doing a Mayberry-themed episode? I'm going to tell you why. Because I got a letter from a young man named Larry. And Larry writes, now how about a little theme music for this? Larry writes, Dear Sean, it's been a rough year for me. My mother passed away, and I'm living with my grandmother. But I have taken some of your advice, and I have started to watch Andy Griffith online. Every episode is available. I have fallen in love with it. In the past few weeks, I have watched all 5 seasons of the black and white episodes, and I am about to start the color episodes. I love Otis Campbell, Ernest T. Bass, Barney Fife, Floyd Lawson. I love everybody, but nobody do I love more than Andy. I think I've watched so many episodes now that I could talk like Andy if I wanted to. Anyway, thanks for the recommendation. I wish the world were more like Mayberry. Well, I can't say it no better than that. When I was a kid, my father died. When I was a young man, I was a boy. My father died in a pretty tragic way. I've talked about it before. Ain't no use talking about it now. And our television station used to play the Andy Griffith Show every weekday at 5 o'clock. There'd be 2 shows back to back, 2 black and white episodes. I never touched the color episodes, only the black and white episodes. And I watched this every single day. I perched myself sitting right in front of that television. In some ways, in many ways, Andy Griffith raised me and was my father. There was a time where we were living in North Carolina with my aunt and uncle, a little tiny town called Mayberry. My aunt had this Zenith console television set in her living room, huge, about the size of a Buick Roadmaster. And I'd perch myself in front of that and I'd watch Andy Griffith. And I would feel that heat come out of that little floor heater she had, and I would watch this screen that was bigger than my head was. It was like to a child, it seemed like a 50-foot by 50-foot screen. And the reason I tell you that is because it felt like I was in Mayberry. A good feeling. I once heard Chip Carey, the grandson of Harry Carey, who used to call for the Chicago Cubs, and Chip Carey calls for the Atlanta Braves, the games on television. I once heard him say that the Andy Griffith show, he remembered, was scheduled on the West Coast, and there were several little towns there that were so obsessed with this show. They loved this show so much that baseball games, had to be rescheduled in order to make allowance for the time slot for Andy Griffith to find the finish. Once the show finished, they could play their baseball game. That's how special Mayberry is. So, without further ado, I am going to get out of this little studio here. I'm going to get into a bus, a Greyhound bus, and I'm going to ride 10 hours north while these fellas play a song for you here in the studio. When I get off the bus, I'm going to be in Mayberry, U.S.A., Mayberry, North Carolina. And we're going to have a conversation with Floyd Lawson, owner and proprietor of Floyd's Barbershop. So these fellas are going to play for you here. And how fitting. They're going to play a song for you that harkens back to the kind of music you might have heard in Mayberry once upon a time. Boys and girls, take it away.
Stitched together by hand, just tattered rags and thread, 13 stars and stripes for the battleground ahead. When the smoke had cleared, I was there, tried and true, proud and strong, red, white, and blue. I wave over schoolyards and little towns, children running all around. I wave above the pulse of city streets, people rushing, chasing dreams. I wave for the land of the free, because of the brave. I wave. On a hill at Iwo Jima, raised by hands that gave all, ground zero through the fire, when evil came to call. First one on the front lines, every hero's pride, and a nation's never-ending cry. I wave over schoolyards and little towns, children running all around. I wave above the pulse of city streets, people rushing, chasing dreams. I wave for the land of the free, because of the brave. I wave, I wave.
And now, a few words from our sponsors.
Presenting the Crotchety Converter app from Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood and Meow Meow Kitty Enterprises. Are they having a bad day? Are they saying bad things and acting ugly? Is that guy driving beside you flying his, pet bird? Don't let it get you down. You have the Crotchety Converter. Just point it in their direction, and when they talk and make motions, the Crotchety Converter turns the curse into a blessing. That flying bird is transformed into a peace symbol, #1 sign, or that hook 'em horns thingy. That curse word becomes a smile and a good morning, "G'day, mate," or a "top of the morning to you." You control the settings. Here she comes. You hear her, "Mwah, mwah, mwah, trash. Mwah, 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 mowing. Mwah, 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 dishes." But you have the Converter app. Now you are greeted with, "Mwah, mwah, mwah, handsome. Mwah, 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 muscles. Mwah, 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 drink a beer and relax." Act now, and when you download the Crotchety Converter for $1.99 plus tax, fees, and processing, we will include the free Spanish upgrade. Que pasa buen día, amigo? Que bueno está Crotchety Converter. I mean, Crotchety Converter. Act now.
Well, I did take a 10-hour bus ride. A 10-hour bus ride. That song, in reality, really took 10 hours to finish. We edited all that out. So I've been riding in a bus for 10 hours north just to get here. And here, where I am, is where I'm coming to get myself a haircut. Is Mayberry, which is kind of ironic because this is the town that is bringing this show to you today. This show is lovingly brought to you by Mountains Music Merlot and Mayberry. Of course, I'm talking about Mount Airy, North Carolina. This is the town that has it all. You can visit this place and you can see the home of Andy Griffith. Also, you can see his actual childhood home, which is where I stayed for my birthday this year. We camped out overnight. I slept in the bedroom of the man himself. Mount Airy was the inspiration for Mayberry in the Andy Griffith Show, and here you can see the largest collection of Andy Griffith memorabilia in one place in the Andy Griffith Museum. Or you can take a tour of the town on a Mayberry squad car. Good Lord. I'm going to tell you, you've never had as much fun. You've never had as much fun until you have piled into a 1962 Ford Galaxy and taken the car tour from Wally's service station all up and down throughout Mount Airy. They got a thriving downtown full of big shops and restaurants, bakeries. We can get out on foot and you can really have a good time because when you're there, you get a sense that this is where something happened. Something gentle. Something that changed America's perception of itself. Something to remember. When Andy Griffith Show was in its heyday, when it came out, early 60s, running all the way through the 60s, this was one of the most turbulent times in America. Turbulent time politically. It was a turbulent time. There was the war in Vietnam going on. There was civil rights marches being conducted in every major city, riots going out. People were in a time of major turmoil, and they turned on the Andy Griffith Show, and they were catapulted into this place right here, where I happen to be, Mount Airy, North Carolina. And I'm walking down Main Street, and I'm sitting here on this bench right a few doors down from the courthouse. And I'm sitting here talking to Floyd Lawson, the barber. Floyd, thank you for being on our show today.
Yeah, it's good to be here. You know, I saw you earlier, and you're looking really shaggy there in the back, so I figured I needed to come down here and try to take care of you.
Well, I appreciate that, Floyd. Would you mind touching it up here in the back for me? I'm.
Oh yeah, I'd be glad to. Yeah, I didn't want you to fall in the hands of a strange barber or anything. Yeah, you've always sat so still in the chair when people cut their hair. That's what I was told. But yeah, I did hear that when you were young, you used to try to eat the shaving cream. Thought it was ice cream. Yeah.
That's true. I've been framed. Floyd, tell me, how long how long have you been in the barbering business?
Well, I'm heading up for something around 30 years now. It's been a long time. You cut hair that long, you get a little case of barber claw. Your hand starts kind of cramping up on you a little bit. But your jaws will clamp up too, because you talk a lot when you're a barber. Yeah. I'm not a comedian or anything, so it's good. A lot of bad hair there in Mayberry, so I get them into the barber shop and clean them up.
So tell me, Floyd, now, what made you decide to open up your own shop in Mayberry, where a lot of the men walk around looking shaggy all the time anyway?
Well, that was the problem. You may not know this, but there was another Floyd. I'm Floyd Lawson, and Floyd Colby had the barbershop before me. Y'all may not realize that. Yeah, and so I was kind of his apprentice. He's the one who taught me how to cut hair. He used to take me out in the alley behind the barber shop. We'd catch cats, and I learned to cut hair on cats. We had the baldest cats in the county there in Mayberry. Yeah. Still to this day, sometimes I forget myself a little, and I'll stroke the back of your neck a little as I cut your hair. Yeah. You don't have to tip me, but if you arch your back and purr, I like that. That's good. Yeah.
All right. So in Mayberry, who's the greatest head you've ever cut?
Oh, Andy's. Yeah, he's got such nice hair. Oh, it's nice. It just lays there. It's got a wave to it. Oh, it's Barney now. He's hard to cut his hair because one lobe is longer than the other, so it's hard to get his sideburns even. Yeah, because it always looks uneven because I can't do anything about it if one lobe's longer than the other.
And what do you do now? What do you do to make sure you get them sideburns even? Because I've heard a lot of guys come out of your shop talking about the sideburns, and even Andy once told me that he gave you a mark on his comb. Tell me, how do you measure sideburns?
Well, the way to get it even, the secret is you take your finger and you stick it in their ear there, and then you can look from the side. You can see how far it is from the hole in their ear. That way you can get it nice and even on each side. Yeah. Don't be telling that to everybody. All the barbers will steal that one, but it's a good one. You can get their hair nice and smooth like that, and then you put a little witch hazel on there because that just makes it smell good. Yeah. The ladies like that. Yeah.
So tell me, Floyd. Now, what was maybe in your life living in Mayberry as a lifelong Mayberry resident? What has been maybe your most frightening experience living in that town?
And that's when Barney was deputy. He was a deputy. He was an acting sheriff one time. You should have seen that. There was a traffic jam right downtown. Oh, that was scary. Yeah, it was bad. Yeah. Oh, you'd have wanted to see that too. The fire truck got turned sideways right in the middle of the street. Oh, it was terrible. And Barney ended up arresting everybody in town. It was scary. Yeah.
Tell me, Floyd, in your time cutting Opie Taylor's hair, this is something that's kind of near and dear to my heart because Opie Taylor has red hair like myself. I'm curious, how do you cut hair like Opie Taylor's and make it come out looking good?
Well, you got to have some skill there. You got to go to barber college. Not just anybody can cut hair. You have to go to barber college. And you can always remember tempest edax rerum. That's time heals all. I learned that from my Latin teacher in barber college. Yeah.
Floyd, let me ask you this: in your life, was there a moment when you were a child that you knew that the world was filled with bad hair and that you needed to do something about it?
So, well, yeah, boy. There in Mayberry, we have a lot of folks that come out down from the mountains, and some of the Darlings. You may have met them before. They come down. But when I was a boy, their family was still lived up in the mountains. They would come down there. They cut their own hair. They just take a bowl and put it on their head and trim around. And that's when I knew we needed to do something to make people look better because it was kind of scary. You see those people coming down with a bowl haircut. That was bad.
So you mean to tell me you've cut Briscoe Darling's hair?
Well, Briscoe, no, he tries to cut it himself, and I have cut it a couple of times, yeah, just for just for charity. But he said he wanted no part of it.
So let me ask you this. I understand on good authority that you have served as a deputy before in certain situations. Tell me what that was like, serving under the charge of Barney Fife and Andy Taylor.
Oh, that was nice. My badge number was 3. It's 3. Yeah, that was good. Oh, I patrolled the streets during the Founders Day. Oh, it was big. Yeah, it's the biggest days in Mayberry there. You have to, yeah. Oh, I kept the street clean too. It was good. I even swept the sidewalk while I was out there. It was nice. Yeah, it was good. A little hard working under Barney though. He's kind of a slave driver. He wouldn't give us any weapons. Yeah, but he said there wasn't time to train us in the proper use of firearms. But I did get a hat. I had a hat though, and a badge. So that was nice.
Floyd, let me ask you this now. If somebody walks into your barber shop and they're looking for a haircut, how many styles do they have to choose from in your repertoire?
Oh, we have the poster on the wall. We got the Cary Grant. We got the Hollywood. There's several different kinds of haircuts you can get. You can just pick them off on the poster there, or sometimes I can just read your own head and I'll do it that way. Because I got the magazines to swing it too. When you're in there, you can pick your own hairstyle. So it's almost any style you'd like. Just drop by Floyd's Barbershop. Yeah, we got it. Yeah.
Well, Floyd, let me ask you this: what do you do when you're not cutting hair? What do you do in your free time? How do you unwind in Mayberry?
Well, I like to play in the Mayberry band. I'm a trombone player. So yeah, Andy lets me play in the band. That's a good one. Sometimes I just read the paper and sit around and talk to Mr. Swamp. He doesn't talk much. Mr. Swamp's a good listener. But yeah, that's mostly what I do. And Melba, my wife, that's my wife, Melba. She likes to can goods and stuff, so I carry stuff down to the cellar for her a lot. That's a lot.
So, Floyd, let me ask you this. This is the question that's on everybody's mind. It's on my mind. It's on maybe in the world, and probably even way out in yonder planets where people or aliens are growing up on different climates. What is it like to grow up in Mayberry?
Oh, Mayberry's a friendly town. It is. The people there care for each other, and that's just something I wish everybody could experience. Growing up or somewhere you don't have to lock your doors, and people can walk down the street and children playing, and nobody's bothering them, but everybody's watching out for them. And folks watch out for their friends and their family, and pretty much everybody is friends or family in Mayberry. And boy, that's just something I wish everybody could experience, because it's a special way of life, and we just wish everybody had a little Mayberry in their life. And yeah, it's a good place. It's so nice.
Floyd, I'd like to say thanks for being on our show. I've got a 10-hour bus ride all the way back down to Northwest Florida for the other half of our show. But thank you for the haircut. I've never felt quite as handsome as I look now. I guess I'll have to get it finished when I come back.
Oh, glad to do it. Yeah, there's a lot of bad hair. That's true. All right. Well, thanks for having me. Yeah.
Taught her to play. I never got to meet her, but I know very well. Her legacy is in those keys and the stories that they tell. Each note she played still rings across the years, moving up and down through laughter, hopes, and tears. Sing at every show, flow through my heart from Grandma's piano. the stories that they tell. Each note she plays still rings across the years, moving up and down through laughter, hopes, and tears. Every melody I'll ever know, the songs I sing at every show, flow through my heart from Grandma's piano. Each note she plays still rings across the years, moving up and down through laughter, hopes, and tears. Every melody I'll ever know, the songs I sing at every show, flow through my heart from Grandma's piano.
Ooh, there's a 10-hour bus ride that really wore me out. 10 hours south from North Carolina back here to Northwest Florida. The two climates couldn't be any different. I knew I was in Northwest Florida as soon as that bus door opened, and I could smell the trademark smell of Northwest Florida, which is, drumroll please, sulfur, eggs, rotten eggs, and mildew. That is Florida for you. We are a humid bacteria frap, generating all sorts of interesting smells. And our trademark sound is frogs, a chorus of frogs who are telling you that this is their ceremonial mating grounds, so get off. This episode today, I don't want to forget, is brought to you lovingly by Visit Mayberry. Visit Mayberry. This is the Mount Airy Tourist Association, the visitor center in Mount Airy. Mount Airy is the town of all towns, the American town of all towns, and it's right there in North Carolina. It has it all. You can take these tours on these squad cars through an old Mayberry, and they really know what they're talking about. These guys who lead these tours know exactly what they're talking about when it comes to the Andy Griffith Show. If you like the Andy Griffith Show, or if you just like the idea of an older time, you're going to like Mayberry. Why am I throwing this at you so hard? Because I believe everybody in their mother's brother's house cat's cousin deserves to go to the snappy lunch and get themselves a pork chop sandwich, just like Andy Griffith used to eat. You can go get one. You can watch the guy make it through the glass window. He fries these pork chops up. I believe everybody needs to get into a 1962 through a 1965 Ford Galaxy with these old boys driving the car and telling them all the facts and trivial tidbits about Mount Airy, North Carolina. I think everybody needs to at least walk inside the Andy Griffith Museum. I was fortunate enough to sleep for my birthday night, this past birthday, in Andy Griffith's childhood home, which is just beneath the water tower. I think everybody deserves to do this because it's, I don't know. I really have no reason for it other than that it is a wonderful experience. So visit Mayberry, hashtag visit Mayberry, or you can look up the Visitor Center Mount Airy, 200 Main Street, Mount Airy, North Carolina, or you can look them up on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter at hashtag visit Mayberry NC. In the studio with me today, I have a Mayberry expert, an Andy Griffith Show expert, who I am fortunate enough to call my friend, Alan Newsom, who also runs and operates the Two Chairs No Waiting podcast. Is that right?
That's right. 2 chairs, no waiting. And I got the magazines to swing it too. Yeah.
You've also got, tell me what else you got.
Oh, I run, I'm the webmaster of design, done everything with imayberry.com. And that's the website for the Andy Griffith Show Rerun Watchers Club. It's a club with 20-something thousand chapters or members and chapters. It's just thousands of chapters.
So tell me how did that start for you? I mean, did you just wake up one day with that in mind, or are you like me? Have you always gravitated toward other Andy Griffith Show fans?
Well, I have always loved the Andy Griffith Show. And when I was in college, I went to Auburn and went to college there. And my roommate, Rob Jones, got me interested in the Rerun Watchers Club because that was started by Jim Clark.
the Andy Griffith Show Rerun Watchers Club.
Oh, I see.
And in college, we would get together every evening to kind of relax from school and watch Andy Griffith Show on TV. And that's when I really got hooked. And then when I got out of college, I wanted to learn how to do web pages. And I thought, well, I'll do one about the Andy Griffith Show. And so over time, the iMayberry.com site grew and grew. I've been running it since about 1993 or 4.
Good Lord.
And yeah, it's been around forever. There's all kinds of Andy Griffith Show related information there, and links to all kinds of other web pages that are also related, including Weaver's Department Store, where you can buy Mayberry stuff. You can go over to mayberry.info, and it's it's kind of like Wikipedia for Andy Griffith Show.
Well, tell me this: what's your weirdest experience, almost otherworldly experience involving Mayberry or the Andy Griffith Show?
Well, I've told a story before about Don Knotts, because I do Floyd the Barber at events. I've been able to do several events with Don Knotts, and Andy Griffith always talked about his greatest joy on Andy Griffith Show was watching Don Knotts turn into Barney Fife every day. And I got to see just a little bit of that. I was doing an event in Nashville, Tennessee, and I was standing backstage where my buddy David Browning, who does Barney, was out on stage and introducing Don Knotts. So I'm standing backstage looking from the dark backstage area out to the lit area, and there's Don Knotts, very quiet man, kind of slumped over. I could just see his silhouette. And as David Browning began to say, "Ladies and gentlemen, Don Knotts," I saw him go from a slumped over, kind of just quiet mannered man. His shoulders began to straighten and come back, his head lifted up, and he walked out onto that stage as his name was announced and just took over the audience.
No kidding.
And I just got to see just a little piece of what Andy Griffith had been talking about, watching Don Knotts turn into Barney Fife that day. And that's probably one of the more surreal.
That just gave me chills as an Andy Griffith fan myself. You know, there's something about the show that I feel like a lot of people forget. Andy and Barney, Don and Andy were not just actors. These guys were real entertainers. Have you, in the events you've done and all the things you've seen, have you noticed the difference between that and modern television?
Oh, it's amazing. The quality of the acting and the effort that they put into the events. Karen Knotts, Don's daughter, has talked often about, she used to sit when her dad was working on his scripts. He would go in his office and close the door, and she would sit outside the door and listen to him as he read a line or a sentence of the script over and over until he said it exactly like he wanted to, and then he would do the next one. And so these men, while they were amazing actors, they worked very hard to make it look so easy, to be so believable, that you watch Andy Griffith's show, and most of us, if we grew up in the South, we knew people like Aunt Bee or Aunt Bee's, the ladies that were Aunt Bee's friends. They were the church ladies at our churches.
Oh, yeah.
There was an Ernest T that probably lived in your town.
Yeah, that's right.
There was always something about the Andy Griffith Show that just brings back some memories of real people. And I think that's why the difference between the Andy Griffith Show and new television shows is that I can watch the Andy Griffith Show over and over and over, and it's funny every time.
Same here.
It's not a joke. It's like you watch and say, watch what Barney's going to do. Watch this.
And every time I see them on the porch or in the office talking about, like, where Barney says, he'll tell Andy, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go watch the George Raft movie with Del Malou or something. He says it like the men in my childhood would have said it, just so relaxed. Right. How do you even get that level of reality in your acting?
I think those men had grew up like we did, where there were people that they knew that they were acting somewhat like. It's like, yeah, you know what I'm going to do, Andy? I'm going to go down to the drugstore, get a bottle of pop, head over to Thelma Lou's, watch some TV. Yep. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. Drugstore, bottle of pop, Thelma Lou's for TV. Yeah. It just looked so natural and it's so believable.
So quiet. They were so quiet.
Amazing. And if you've ever had an opportunity to see the actual scripts from the Andy Griffith Show, which I have, it is amazing to me to watch. There's lines that Floyd did, for instance, where you read the script and it says, only thing it says in there is Bobby Gribble hates Emma Larsh. Now they're announcing they're coming nuptials. But when Floyd says it, says, hey, you see what it says? Bobby Gribble hates Emma Larsh. You know, he's got the delivery and the way it was delivered, turned those words into something funny and memorable, where the words don't seem that. So these men and ladies that were on the Andy Griffith Show were amazing.
Tell me, Floyd was a natural for you. Did you just always like him, or was it just something you slipped into because you resembled him? How did that happen?
That was really what happened. My buddy David Browning, who does the Mayberry Deputy, he's the Barney. He saw me. We met each other there at an event, and after it was over, we were sitting around just talking. And anytime you talk like about the Andy Griffith Show, whether it be Briscoe or Ernest T, you have to try to talk like them when you're given the line, right? So I was doing that about 92. People always talk about the weather, and nobody does anything about it. Yeah. So I started talking like Floyd, and so David at the next event we were attending, he kept getting me to talk like Floyd to people, and eventually talked me into just, hey, come to Mayberry Days in Mount Airy, North Carolina, and dress up like Floyd, and people will love you. And yeah, I'm an electrical engineer, and so that is not in my behavior pattern to go out in front of people and dress up like a barber and do stuff. But
what is that like? What is that like doing Mayberry Days in Mount Airy, North Carolina, as Floyd the Barber and being in total character? What kind of a rush is that?
It is an amazing thing to be there and just have all these people that are enjoying seeing you and talking to you. And my theory has always been, if I'm dressed like Floyd, I talk like Floyd and I act like Floyd. I don't want to come out of character. I want to stay in characters the whole time. The problem I have now is even when I'm not doing Floyd, evidently I still do Floyd, because my wife and son say, because I've been doing this for 26 years now, and
goodness,
and it's great fun. Mayberry Days is an amazing event, and if you've never been able to come, I want to encourage you to think about it, because Mount Airy, North Carolina, for a weekend, the last full weekend of September every year, turns into Mayberry, and that's Andy Griffith's hometown. For anybody that doesn't know Mount Airy. And right now, Thelma Lou lives there, which I know you've met her, and she lives there. And so she will be at Mayberry Days, and other cast members will be there. And you know what? It's great meeting the cast members. Don't want to put that down at all, but it's the fans you'll meet. The fans of the Andy Griffith Show are some of the nicest people you'll ever meet. And you get an opportunity to visit with them and just meet people that you've known your whole life, even if you've never met them.
Well, what's the most interesting fan you've ever met?
Oh, well, I don't know, because I meet so many that are already dressed up like some character, so that happens a lot for me. Some of the most interesting things that have happened to me is when you see people who actually believe you are Floyd, and that's a little hard, because you don't want to say I'm not really Floyd, but you don't want to say that, but you don't want to. That's a little hard, but
there's something that's always been on my mind when it comes to the Andy Griffith Show, and it's the younger kid generations, and I worry sometimes that they're not getting into it, but my worries have been taken care of, because I get a lot of messages. I'm sure you do, being at the center of the hub of the Mayberry like you are. Do you find that a lot of the younger kids and newer generations are getting into the Andy Griffith Show?
When you come to Mayberry Days, you'll see a lot of young people. There are a lot of young people there, and a lot of them know the show. We have a trivia contest every year during Mayberry Days. We have the regular trivia for adults and anybody, but we also have a youth trivia. And there are children, that come there and can answer all kinds of questions about the Andy Griffith Show in that contest. So
no kidding.
Yeah, so it is really refreshing. I will admit, based on my podcast and things I see, the people what I see is that people seem to kind of gravitate back toward the Andy Griffith Show in their 30s. Maybe that's when they have children or something, but you see the viewership or listenership to the podcast kind of grow at that point, and then it grows on up as people are in their 50s and going on up.
No kidding.
Yeah. So I do believe that there are still young people that are definitely interested in it. And that's great. I mean, it means their parents raised them right.
Yeah. Well, because I've met a lot of kids at places I've been, and they're into the show, and it almost gives me hope for America again, because I was under the impression that everybody was into something else, and I've met a lot of kids with that interest. I have another question for you. Mm-hmm. Being is connected with people who are continuing the legacy of Mayberry and keeping it going. Where do you see this going maybe in the next 15, 20 years? I mean, how long will the legacy of Mayberry and Andy Taylor and Barney Fife and Floyd Lawson and the rest be kept alive?
I don't know, but I want to believe. And based on, like I said, I've been doing Floyd for 26 years, and it has only grown. Like Mayberry Days is bigger every year than it was year before, pretty much. I mean, it's not dying down.
Wow.
There's not the big events that we used to have. Like I did events at the Opryland Theater, at the Opryland Hotel, with Don Knotts and George Lindsay and Betty Lynn, and we did events there. Those were big events. We don't really have those, but we have a lot of festivals and street, events like that throughout the year. We have several of those that still happen, and Mayberry Days is the big one. And there's a big one up in the Midwest that's called Mayberry in the Midwest, up in Indiana. And both of those events have been going. Well, Mayberry Days is 28 years, I think. This year, 27. Anyway, several years like that, 20 some odd years. And we've been doing Mayberry in the Midwest for 8 years.
Really?
So there's still events out there, and there's a lot of interest, I believe. Now, the main thing is to make people realize, just like the kind of humor that you provide, that there's an audience for that. There are people that still love the Andy Griffith Show and good, wholesome fun and stories and jokes that are not vulgar. They enjoy it. And we just got to make sure people don't forget that all this is still available, that there are still people who, like you, that love the Andy Griffith Show and love to tell stories that are the kind of story you'd hear on the Andy Griffith Show. That's still there.
Well, you are way too kind to me. Let me ask you this. I know this is going to be a hard order, and I know this is probably something everybody in their mother's, brother's, uncle's house cat has asked you, and I know there's probably no way to answer it, but I'm going to ask anyway, just because when I stand here with Floyd the Barber, something inside me wakes up, maybe some 7-year-old that used to sit in front of the television. What is your favorite episode?
I tell you, honestly, it changes a lot, because it's almost whichever episode I saw last is my favorite. But I love the pickle story. I love that episode. I just think it's very funny. That one's one of my favorite as far as funny goes. I of course, since I do Floyd, I love Convicts at Large, which is when Barney and Floyd got captured up in the cabin by the convicts. I love that one. And, I could just keep going, really. There are so many that are so fun to watch and just have so many lines and little bits in them. Like when Barney's trying to get out of the house when Aunt Bee comes home and he's getting the pickles into the suitcase and he's trying to leave to go see his cousin, and Andy has to close the door on him.
You can see Andy's face break in that scene. You can see him start to smile. That's one of my favorite scenes ever. Let me ask you this.
It's hilarious.
Let me ask you this. Let's say we have a lot of kids who listen to this podcast. God knows why, but they do. And my question to you is, as the expert in this field, the field of nostalgia, Americana, and Mayberry, how would you recommend a child get into the Andy Griffith Show? They've never heard it, they've never seen it, but they want to get into it because they hear us talking about it and they wonder what in the heck we're talking about. How would you recommend them go about that?
Well, if you start watching in the episodes, you watch the ones with Opie. The very first episode of every season of the Andy Griffith Show was always focused on Opie. So kids identify with Opie, young people do. So that would be a good way to start, because you'll see him grow up too, because from season 1, 2, 3, he's a year older every time. And so I think he's a good conduit for young folks to see. They can identify with Opie because some of the things he's going through, and those are good episodes, I think, to pick out. So the first episode of every season is Opie. So those would be fun to watch.
Before you leave, there's one thing I really wanted you to talk about. Tell me about, because this is such an incredible thing for a little guy in my position to think about, that you were invited to go to Don Knotts' memorial service. Can you tell me about that?
So right after Don Knotts had passed, they had a memorial service for him. And, I knew about it, but I didn't think about being able to go, but I had done several events with Don over the years. So I got a phone call at my house, and my wife answered it, and she came running in here and said, "You got to take this. You got to take this." I was like, "Why?" She said, "Because it says Don Knotts." The caller ID said Don Knotts. And it was actually Don's wife, Francie. It was her mother had called me and said, "Alan, we didn't hear back from you. Were you going to come to the memorial service?" Because the memorial service was like 2 days later in California. And I was like, "Well, I don't know. I didn't know I was supposed to be coming." She said, "Well, some people's invitations got lost, and I'm afraid yours got lost. So will you be able to come?" So story shorter there, I ended up getting a red-eye flight the next day, flying to California and going to the memorial service for Don Knotts that they held at the Writers Guild Theater in Los Angeles. And so it was me and David Browning, that does the Mayberry Deputy, and Jim Clark was there, that was the presiding goober of the Andy Griffith Show Rerun Watchers Club, and his wife. They were there. And as part of that, there were all kinds of people there. I was standing there with David and Jim looking around this room, and Tom Poston is over here from Newhart Show, and Bob Newhart, and Suzanne Plachette. And, wow. Here comes Betty Lynn over, and Betty Lynn says, "Hey, Alan, come let me introduce you to some people." So she starts introducing me to her friends.
Andy wasn't there?
Andy was there, yes. Andy was there, yes. He was there, too. And Betty started introducing me to all of her friends that were actors and actresses. And I'm standing there going, "What am I doing in this room? Why am I here?" But Francie, Don's widow, saw me from a distance, because this is a big room we were in before the memorial service. And she came running over, Alan. She said, "I'm so glad you could come. It meant so much to Don doing those shows with you and David over the years. And I'm so glad you were able to make it here." And I'm thinking, why are you even talking to me? There's Tim Conway over there, so,
Wow.
So,
wow.
So I stood out there, and Rance Howard, Ron's dad, was standing over by himself. And I was standing there going, I'll never have another chance to talk to him. So I walked over and just spoke to him and introduced myself and just spoke to him for a few minutes. So I thought, wow, hey, I got to meet Rance Howard. I knew Ron was there, but Andy and Ron were kind of in a different area.
Was Clint?
Clint, I don't remember seeing Clint, but I'm almost sure he was there. So Andy and Ron, like I said, were in a different area, because people would kind of flock around them to some degree, probably. So anyway, we got into the theater, and I was going in to sit down, and I was going to get in this row, and there's Barbara Eden is getting in right in front of me. I thought, well, I can't sit here.
Wow.
I don't need to sit on her row. And then the next row was Bernard Fox, that was Malcolm Merriweather on the Andy Griffith Show, Dr. Bombay on Bewitched. He was there. I thought, well, and so I kind of stepped back because somebody else was coming out of that row. And when I stepped back, I stepped on somebody And I was like, I turned on, I'm so sorry. It was Ron Howard. I stepped on Ron Howard. He goes, oh, it's fine. That's fine. And he just kept walking. And I was like, I stepped on Ron Howard's foot. What's wrong with me? So,
what was that like? What was the energy like in that room?
oh, it was an amazing thing. I'm so glad my wife encouraged me to go because, it was 2 days before the event. And I was like, I don't know if I can go this or not. And she said, no, you're going. So she got the tickets and paid, whatever, because it wasn't cheap to do 2 days out. But it was an amazing thing to be there. People are always saying, did you take pictures? I was like, no, it was a memorial service for somebody. I didn't take pictures. And back then, they didn't have a cell phone that would just take pictures. So I couldn't have been discreet. It would have had to be
right. What was that? 2006, 2005?
Yeah, 2006. Yeah.
2006.
So I wouldn't have been able to be discreet taking these pictures. But my wife, Jan, got me to, she encouraged me to go, and I'm glad she did. And both of that whole weekend was, I came back that next day, I guess. It was humbling. It was very nice. I will tell you that we took a picture of the phone with caller ID on it. With where it said Don Knotts, we took a picture. Jan took a picture of it. So we have photographic evidence of that. So it was really neat. So.
Well, we are at a time where else I would just keep going selfishly. I'm going to be honest, this has been a selfish endeavor for me, having Floyd the Barber on the show and taking a trip to Mayberry. If I hadn't said it yet enough, I want to tell you that this episode was brought to you lovingly by Mount Airy Visitor Center tourist folks at large. Just go visit them if you get a chance. If not, then just turn on Andy Griffith, because God knows the world could use it after these days of quarantining. Alan Newsom, owner and operator of the I Mayberry website and Two Chairs No Waiting podcast, hosted by Floyd the Barber. Thank you for being with us here today.
Thank you. I really appreciate you having me. I always enjoy talking about the Andy Griffith Show, so anytime.
Well, I wish we could keep this show going forever, but alas, all good things must come to an end, and all mediocre things must come to an end, which brings me to this last portion of our show. I'm going to be singing a song here that was made popular on the Andy Griffith Show briefly. It's really an old folk song, but it was made popular because Gomer Pyle sang this on the episode where he joins the Mayberry Choir. Now, there were a few really good Mayberry Choir episodes, but the one that really stands out is the one where Gomer Pyle joins the Mayberry Choir, and everybody in the world figures out that he is not just some hillbilly hick. This boy can sing, because he really could in real life. He had an operatic voice to beat the band. Now, I've visited Sylacauga, Alabama many times, have friends there. I've walked around in the high school where he graduated, seen his little memorial museum, visited porches where he used to sit. They say he was an incredible dancer, an artist from the top of his head to the sole of his foot. And he sang this song, which I'm going to attempt to sing for you, and hope I don't sound like a flock of dying cats. Before I leave, I want to tell you this episode was brought to you by Case Knives, a tradition of my family dating back to my granddaddy, who once said the best cure for idle hands was to build something, and that is no joke. Also, want to say thank you to WNC Original Music, who supply the music for this podcast every single week. Thank you to Family Sal for being with us on this podcast. Their music is a respite. You need to go check them out at Family Sal. Family Sal. Look them up. You won't regret it. And by Folklore Brewing and Meadery, quite literally the best brew in Alabama. Let's have a little piano music here. Hazel? Now, neath the silver moon, ocean is glowing, o'er the calm billow breaks, soft winds are blowing, here balmy breezes blow, pure joy invites us, and as we gently roll, all things delight us. Hark how the sailors cry, joyous sweetly echoes nigh. Santa Lucia, Santa Lucia, home of fair poesy, sweet realm of harmony. Santa Lucia, Santa Lucia. When the waters light, light winds are playing, thy spell can soothe us, all cares allaying. To thee, sweet Napoli, what charms are given, where smiles creation, tours blessed by heaven. Hark how the sailors cry, joyously echoes nigh. Santa Lucia, Santa Lucia, home of fair poesy, sweet realm of harmony. Santa Lucia, Santa Lucia. Have a fantastic week.